Hello and welcome to my Chats with Dads in Business, where I speak to busy dads who are running or leading in businesses about how they manage their energy, their focus and their health whilst they're spinning so many plates. If you're watching live or you have any questions, please let us know or say hi. And today I'm delighted to welcome an awesome guest, a relationship crisis coach, Puya Delavar. If you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's really nice to be talking to you. Yes, absolutely. So I'm Puya Delavar. I'm a relationship crisis coach. I basically help dads to make sure that they keep their marriage together. So they want to avoid divorce or separation. And I work with people who are typically busy themselves and they possibly spend too much time or focused on one area of their life and they might have neglected other areas. So just in a nutshell, I have a philosophy called holistic success, but because I believe it's not okay to just focus on one area. Success means having the right balance in all areas of your life. And holistic success has three main areas that I encourage my clients to work on. One is obviously career and personal development, which is extremely important. The other one is health and personal well-being. And the other one is love and personal relationship, where my expertise lie. But I make sure that my clients understand that it is a holistic approach that I need to have towards life in order to really enjoy it as much as I can.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for the intro, and thanks for spending some time with me today as well. And I think it's really important to look at things more holistically, and it's certainly in my own coaching, it's something I'm starting to do more and more now, is because, you know, life is a complicated ball of all kinds of things and inputs coming in. And I think if you've got a goal in mind, you have to consider everything that's in contact with you all of the time in order to actually find success. So
absolutely,
yeah, fascinating to have you on today. So, you know, obviously this conversation usually for me is about finding out a little bit about the guest and how you kind of manage yourself. And I'm sure people that watch this are going to be interested in that as well. So, you know, you're a dad, obviously, so it'd be good to know from you kind of, you know, other areas in life in terms of your managing your energy and your health, certainly then since having children and then growing your business, that are there areas that you've had to work on specifically, or elements of your health that you've had to kind of, you know, focus on and manage in order to be the man that you are today?
Absolutely, yes. As you mentioned, yes, I am a dad. I have two girls, and my partner and I. So we have a teenage daughter, so she's 13, and a 10-year-old, and as you can imagine, that brings its own set of challenges when it comes to time, energy. Just a small, let's say, background towards me. So I've been working as a business relationship manager, so in the corporate world, for about 22 years. And then I moved on to what I do now, which is coaching on specifically relationship. So I still working on relationship management, but yeah, the focus is really on personal relationship rather than business. And that transition obviously had challenges when it comes to keeping the right level of energy, mindset, and also health, because that can impact all those three areas. Mm. So yes, the biggest challenge that I've had, I would say, in that area is when you start your own business. The mindset that you have is very different to having to go to the office and having to work for someone else's success, let's say. But it is really your success, which means if you really want to, you can put 24 hours in it if you really want to. But so keeping that balance has been the biggest challenge, having that deadline of whenever that is in the evenings, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, to just making sure that I put enough time and energy towards my family as well as my business, which goes back to this whole having this holistic mindset, so that I don't neglect one area and just focus on the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing to focus on, is to look at time and how you're managing it effectively. And I like to allude to that with a lot of my clients who are generally business owners or leading in business. And in their business, they've got systems and they're organized and they've got a project plan and everybody's got an assigned job. But at home, they maybe don't have that. And so sometimes, you know, in order to sort of help them, I sort of say, let's treat this home thing like a bit of a project for a minute. How would you break this down? How would you set goals? How would you assign tasks? You know, and a few light bulbs kind of come on when you start to do that. So yeah, that's really interesting. So what I tend to do with my clients is I kind of work on 4 pillars, because I'm looking at physical health. But obviously, when we look at that holistic approach, I have to consider all sort of avenues towards that. So I look at nutrition, I look at movement of the body, be that exercise or just general movement. I look at rest and sleep, and then I look at mindset. And when I talk about mindset with my clients, what I mean by that really is what your attitude towards these things is, and how organized you are around them. And so I guess really that piece that you're saying about how to balance your time and how to make everything fit for you, that's the piece that you really need to get organized around.
Absolutely. I do the same with my clients. So even though the focus is really relationship, we look at how this person is going through their day, even hour by hour, just to understand what is really draining your energy. Because what I find is that a lot of people put all their energy and focus in business, let's say, and they come home and they're just so exhausted. There's really no time either for themselves or their partner or their children. So their battery is completely empty. So having that mindset that life is not just about work, or even if you're 100% focused on health, isn't having that balance is the key. And a lot of people struggle finding that balance, which then spills over to the other areas. The reason I talk about the holistic success like you do is because even when it comes to relationship, your health affects it. Your relationship then affects your career. Your career then affects your health. It's all intertwined, and just ignoring one fact and focus on the other one, it isn't going to work. So mindset is extremely important. Physical health, mental health, all of those work very nicely together. So even the awareness of this fact brings so much value towards having that successful life, really.
Yeah. What I'm interested and intrigued to find out with your clients generally, is there kind of one thing or one area that needs the most work, or is it just a mix and it's completely individual every time?
Well, that's the beauty of what I do. And the reason I started doing this is, personally, I had a crisis about 12 years ago. So when my daughter was 1 year old, and I went through a struggle. I looked for a solution. I couldn't find it. I was basically trying to find someone who could look at my situation and say, this is what you need to do. And I couldn't find one. Everything was just too generic. And this is what I do at the moment. I have one-on-ones, and I look at every situation in a personalized way, in a very targeted, tailored way, because every situation is different. Of course, there are areas and processes that you can apply in general to all relationships, but having that focused attention brings a lot of value. So this is what I do with my clients. And yes, so one typical aspect that most of my clients have is the fact that they've entered the relationship without the right tools. And in my opinion, the worst situation to be in is to be suffering as a result of something without knowing why. So, for example, if I have a health issue, but I can't really understand what the problem is, I can't really help myself. I just suffer as a result of it. And relationship is exactly the same. So we enter these in quite life-changing endeavors, marriages, long-term relationships, without being properly equipped. And what I do is, first, I go through what I call a mapping of the relationship, just to understand where we're at. Then we go through an education phase where we find out, okay, the pitfalls or the areas that are weaknesses that we've identified. How can we fill in those gaps? How can we use the strengths in our relationship to work to our advantage? And then eventually how to turn those into habits, so that it's not just an education of, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, but not really changing. So it's a self-awareness, which I'm sure you do with your clients, self-awareness process, education process, and eventually making that your new daily routine, new norm, really, which gets you a situation where you do enjoy your relationship a lot more, even more than you've ever thought that you would. Same way as I'm sure you would enjoy a healthier lifestyle a lot more than not having paid attention to that area.
No, it's I mean, it's exactly the same as what I do, except obviously mine, I'm almost creating a better relationship with food and an understanding of how it can nourish your body and what it can do for you in terms of your energy and your health. So it's precisely how I approach it as well. So it's fascinating because obviously when I speak to people about and I do a similar thing to you, so we sort of audit the day essentially, and we look at things like what are your normal behaviors in the morning around your, how you approach the day, how you get up, how your energy levels are, how you're fueling yourself, what the day then looks like. And in unpicking that, we tend to, we never find that it's just one thing. It's getting ready for work, it's getting the kids to school, it's not having prepared for lunch, it's what happens when you get home, and then there's stress at home, and we dig into all these sorts of things as well. So it's fascinating situation, and then no two clients are the same for me either, because we're all completely unique.
Exactly, absolutely. I love that. We're all unique, so we have your unique issues, but having the everybody could go and buy a hammer and maybe build a table, but everyone is going to build it in a different way because of our unique traits. So you can use the same tool, but to your advantage, apply to your own situation in the way that works for you. So having that awareness, is really the first step. But then the next step, which is also really important, is the choice, is to decide, yes, what I've been doing until now has gotten me to this. I'm not so happy about this. What can I do to change it? And that decision to make a change, to come to you, for example, or come to me, depending on what area they want to improve, is the most important thing. Because once you've decided that you want to make a change, and you're willing to learn and make a difference. So, which is what we should be doing all the time, I think, all of us, really.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, if you think back to childhood, that's what we are doing all of the time, isn't it? We're sort of testing the water, trying things out, taking advice, finding guidance, but we're figuring it out for ourselves. We're feeling it, we're living it, and we're figuring it out for ourselves. And I think it's odd. Something that struck me the other day on the gym floor, because I work with dads in the gym as well, and we never, when we get to adulthood, we drop loads of things that were really good for us when we were kids. So in the gym scenario, we don't sprint, we don't jump, we don't climb. There's a load of fun things that we just sort of stop doing because they're not adult things, they're not grown-up things to do. And actually, I got them all jumping around, and they were laughing their heads off. It was great. It was like being a kid again, So I think that, there's a lot to kind of take from that as well, as to not let those lessons go and those opportunities go.
I love that. I absolutely love that, because I've been saying to all my friends, I think if there was a playground for adults, and if it was okay for adults to go and just play in the playground, a lot of people would do it, and they will be better off because of it. So since my kids are getting older, we go to playgrounds less and less now, which is a shame, because it almost is an excuse for adults to also be in the playground and do things that are actually good for them. You feel so much better because you do go through these areas and you go running around and go on the swing. So yes, absolutely, I'm 100% with you. And I think it is a shame that we take it for granted when we're kids, and the fact that we lose it because it's just not okay to do as an adult. We really, really should. Moving makes such an enormous difference to how we feel at the end of the day, I think.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah. And it's a real shame because, we become, when we grow up, we sort of gain responsibility, I suppose, don't we? So we have to pay the bills, and we've got all these other responsibilities. So we sort of, the things we drop are those things that would actually help us feel better and keep us healthy. It's a really weird paradox that we put ourselves into.
I know. No, absolutely. I'm 100% with you. So my wife and I, we try to go on a daily walk every morning. And every now and then, and only my wife knows this so far, because every now and then when I see that there's no one around, we go to the woods. And if there's a long path, I'll say, come, let's just sprint. Let's just take 20 seconds and just give it 100%. So we do that. We just go crazy. We also have a dog. Yes, you take maybe a few minutes to then catch your breath afterwards, but it's fantastic. And without a doubt, we feel good afterwards. But somehow, if we're just walking down the street, we wouldn't probably do that because we're so self-conscious about the image that we're projecting. But yeah, we absolutely should.
Yeah, I think something that's maybe come from age with me is that I stopped caring what anyone thinks about what I do now. So I just do that stuff anyway and just, enjoy it and laugh and don't really care what they think. But in your 20s and 30s, maybe that attitude isn't quite developed yet.
Yeah. No, the older we get, we appreciate, like you said, what the traits that we had in our childhood, because we see the benefits. But I'm 100% with you. Yes, I also don't, because at the end of the day, who cares? You're the one who benefits. So why do you care? What does that get us? Nothing really.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There's a great little comment that's popped up. I'm going to put it up on the screen here. So from Mark, thank you. So he's sort of saying, I guess the question to ask is, would I want to have a relationship with me? And I know we're going back a little bit on our conversation, but I find that quite interesting. So you probably do have conversations about that very thing, don't you, with some of your clients? Is how they see themselves and how they project, I guess.
Absolutely. So I hinted on the fact that it's a self-awareness process, the very first phase of my program. Yeah. And that self-awareness is extremely important, because we need to be aware of what influences what in our life, whether it's from childhood or school or society in general, work, what influences they've had in our decision making. So coming back to, let's say, a relationship with your partner, if you tend to snap at a specific situation, it's good for you to understand why you snap. What is the trigger and what is the underlying reasoning for you to behave that way? And that's partly what I do. So we uncover the layers just so you understand the underlying reason. And that is basically self-awareness. So you're really having a relationship with yourself, because if you understand yourself better, you can understand why others react with you in a different way, or why you react with others in a certain way. So it really is, like Mark very well put it, a relationship with yourself. And the worst situation, as I said, to be in is not knowing yourself enough and just being in this hamster wheel. So you're literally just reacting to the situations. When you understand yourself better, you're more in the driver's seat. You're more in control of how you react with others, which technically means you are in a better situation to be able to get more out of life, because you're more in control of your behaviors and actions. And it's the same with health, really. If you tend to have a pain somewhere, and I'm sure nutrition has a huge impact, and I have a very close relationship with nutrition because my daughter was born with neurodiabetes, so she had a serious skin issue when she was born, which luckily with nutrition we managed to help. So I'm very thankful for someone like yourself. So it's good to understand what is the cause of it, what can I do to best relieve that, and then obviously reap the benefit afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Mark. That was a really nice interjection. So I want to talk to you a bit about sleep, because that being one of my pillars, and I suspect that this also comes into play a lot with the work that you do and with some of your clients. I'm kind of intrigued. So I know from experience with the people I work with, in terms of just looking at their physical health, oftentimes the sort of raised stress levels causes difficulty with sleeping, or the lack of energy. They sort of have a relationship with caffeine and energy drinks and so on, that then also potentially has a knock-on effect into sleep, that then snowballs over into the next day, and so on and so on. So it's something that I usually look at and work on with clients. So I'm interested in, from your side, from your work that you do with clients, where does sleep come into play with that?
100%. So I wouldn't call myself a sleep therapist, but it is one of those elements that hugely affects our mood. So if we all know this, if we've slept well, we're in a better mood the next day. If we've had a bad night's sleep, we're groggy, we're just not the same. And obviously that has an impact on relationships. So having good sleep does impact your relationship as well as your health and everything else. Everything is holistic again. So the way that I work with when it comes to sleep is to understand what makes people sleep badly. So typically when we have too many things on our mind, we're stressed for whether it's because of, I don't know, the boss shouted at us, or we've had an argument with our partner over whatever it is. This is the time when we go to bed that we unwind, and this is the time we go through the issues that we've actually have at the back of our mind. Then typically this is what causes sleep issues, at least with my clients. So one of the practices that I do is a meditation session. It's a guided meditation, and the reason I do that is because typically most of the time our attention is outwards. We focus on everything and everyone else but ourselves.
Yeah.
And what this does is it's changed the direction of that attention inwards to understand and have a look at ourselves more. And this is extremely meditative. So it's not a very long process. So if we start at 15 minutes, sometimes we go to 45. And it's just to monitor and have a look at and observe what thought patterns we have, what is on our mind. And if we do that before sleep, typically it helps us a lot. So when we actually do go to sleep, we've managed to get rid of some of the things that maybe were on our mind during the day. And I do recommend to do this on a daily basis. Not everybody has the time. So even once a week brings a lot of benefits. So that's one way I help my clients. But you're absolutely right. Sleep plays such an important part, both on health and relationships, and how we generally are with everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think your whole energy system comes from it, really. I mean, obviously we feed ourselves with food, which provides the energy, but your cognitive ability to utilize that effectively is primarily based on how well slept you are and how well rested your body and your mind is. So yeah, I find this a fascinating area, and I've had clients work with me over the last few years where they've come in with a purely physical goal, or they want to feel better, or be lighter, or fit in a different set of clothes, or whatever it is, and they don't come in thinking that they're going to improve their sleep, but often the outcome is they have better sleep as well because of the work that we do. And I've proven to myself, and I knew anyway, but they're all linked together. So if your nutrition improves, the quality of your nutrition improves, so does your energy balance, and then does your sleep, and you come full circle every day essentially. Right. So yeah, I think it's, for me, over the last probably year and a half, I probably put more emphasis on that than maybe anything else now in my coaching work, because I think it's so important to get right.
One fact that I've recently, I would say in the last 5 years, been lucky enough to notice, or at least educate myself on, is the fact that we only heal or regenerate during our sleep. We don't heal during the day, but we heal during the night. And that's because our body is too busy doing other things, whether it's digestion or other things, and it doesn't have the capacity. So but when we take a break from that, the body says, okay, now I can heal. Yeah. So the better we sleep, the more we heal. This is why we feel so good in the morning when we've had a good night's sleep. So it really, I want to emphasize how important sleep really is on everything, on how we feel the next day, how much our energy level are, and how much we've managed to heal.
Yeah, and I think anecdotally, it's easy to explain it to anybody. When they're poorly, they just want to go to bed.
Right.
This is the evidence. This is all you need to know, is that, because that's when your body, exactly as you said, is in restorative mode. It can do the processes it wants to do to repair your body, because you're not doing all the other stuff that you're asking it to do. So yeah, and I think that's why it's crept into becoming one of the most important areas for me with my clients. And it's something that we look at early on in our relationship to understand what their routine is around that now. And actually, just by discussing it, you suddenly think, oh, actually, yeah, I'm not doing a great job with that, and maybe I can improve it. And then you just start to notice improvements coming everywhere when you improve that one thing.
Absolutely. I love that. That basic awareness already is literally the best thing that you can do for yourself. So because if you're not aware of it, you're not going to make a change. But as soon as you realize, oh, okay, that could impact my other aspects of my life, then that's the first step, and you want to improve it. So you have that willingness. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting. Obviously, from my point of view, when I'm working with a client around nutrition, sleep's really, really important for that as well, because when you're underslept, it affects the hormones that regulate your hunger and your satiety signals, and also it increases cortisol, which is a stress signal, which makes you less inclined to eat well as well. So that's why it works so well for me, because if I get them sleeping better, their hunger signals are better anyway, yes, without even trying. So it's like a secret weapon. I shouldn't really tell everybody. It's like a secret weapon.
Talking of secrets, I think one of the things that I've noticed that helps me at least a lot is to get daylight, especially in the morning. So when I wake up, I try to get some sunshine. Even if it's cloudy, I just go outside just to get some daylight. And that's helped me sleep better during, at night. So it signals the body, okay, this is the end of rest time. So you get on with your day, which basically means by the time you get to the night, then your body is tired enough to be able to say, okay, now melatonin kicks in, and then you get ready to actually have a proper rest, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sadly, we've created an environment that's not really conducive to a proper sleep cycle, because everywhere is lit. We've got devices in our faces. We're looking at monitors, TVs, tablets, screens, all the time. So we're sending the wrong signals to our body. Our body's in a state of turmoil, essentially, because we're not really giving it the signals it requires to actually do the thing it wants to do naturally. So we have to, and environment's a big problem just nutritionally anyway. But it's one of the things we have to look at is because it's so very, very important. So yeah, it's fascinating to kind of hear it from your side of things as well. So I'd love to ask you, there's probably too many to answer for this, but is there kind of one person, one author, one sort of system, one particular person that's really given you great influence or insight that you would sort of care to mention or to share with people that are watching this?
One person would be difficult. So I follow a number of people, whether it's reading their books. But since I'm in love with self-awareness, I think Carl Jung is probably one that I've spent majority of my time trying to understand his philosophy. So again, there are areas of our psyche that plays a part on how we behave with others, and I'm interested in behavioral psychology. So because I've spent 22 years being a business relationship manager. So it's important for me to understand what makes people do what they want to do, what motivates us to do what we do. So that has been influential in my, let's say, career, which spilled over to what I do now, which is obviously, again, business, it's a relationship management, but it's that aspect of behavioral psychology to understand ourselves better. Plays a huge part. So I would say Carl Jung, but this is this is someone who's obviously written too many books for me to be able to specifically say which one. A system, it's difficult to know what system. I believe, again, I think it's important, whatever you do in life, to have that holistic approach. And I really dislike going to the doctors and they are specialized in one area and completely ignore everything else. Yeah. So I would say if you can apply a holistic approach to your life, that would be, I would say, the advice I could give everyone. Now, holistic approach to everything, when it comes to work, when it comes to health, when it comes to relationship, absolutely everything. Because we're not a machine. We don't have specific parts. Everything works together. And even areas that we probably might not fully understand when it comes to energy levels, that also plays a big part. So understanding, having that mindset, I would say, would be the best thing as a first step towards first development.
No, that's a great answer. And I'm always alluding to this. We are a complex creature, and we have will, which is sort of making a mess of everything, because we will ourselves to do a thing despite what our body, our mind, our environment's telling us to do. So there's so much in play in balancing our health. We've got hormones, we've got all these inputs, physical and internal, external and internal inputs. So, and then, yeah, like I said, we've got this willpower of ours that just says, no, I'm going to do this thing, despite all of these other signals. So I think you're absolutely right. I think we have to take that holistic view and consider everything that's involved, especially if we're at a point of struggle, especially if we're at a bottleneck with something, or, even getting into crisis. Yes, you can sort of address one thing to help alleviate a stress or a problem, but overall you need to look at the whole thing in order to make it easier. And actually, you're probably more likely to succeed with your goal if you look at everything rather than just focusing on one thing.
Absolutely, because everything has an influence on everything else, like you say, and I think you put that very well. We are very complex creatures, so yeah. We're not just a machine, or we're not just, and we don't have just the animal instincts. There's so much into our, let's say, inputs that create who we are, the person, and then there's the spiritual level that comes into play as well. That also plays a huge part in who we are. So yes, having that holistic view, I think, can only be beneficial. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you then, getting back to you personally, have you got a set of daily non-negotiables for yourself and you're protecting your energy and your sort of health and focus? And I'm interested to find out what they are.
Well, I can only talk about things that have worked for me and my clients. So what I've seen work very well is, again, going back to that alone time. So some meditations, that's a non-negotiable for me. I noticed that when I sleep, when it comes, or rather when I slack, when it comes to this, spending some time just relaxing, just being mindful, that I'm not the same the next day. But if I manage to have at least 15 minutes where I think about what's been happening in my day, focus on myself, I'm in a better position to be able to plan my day, the following day, a lot better. So that's a non-negotiable for me. Eating well, 100% is a non-negotiable for me. And this is something that every time, there's, I don't know, a birthday party or something, and everyone goes crazy with sweets and all the things that I normally typically try to avoid. You go in that path, you immediately see the aftermath. So I try to generally be mindful of what I eat. So I don't want to go too crazy. I'm not following any specific diets. I do like meat. I do like, as long as it's a good quality, I try to focus on quality more than, let's say, quantity. But those are non-negotiable, and I see that have an impact on me and my kids and as a family overall. So I would say the non-negotiables would be: pay attention to your health, pay attention to your mindset, and generally take time for yourself. Take a break from the usual routine. Don't be in a hamster wheel. Take a break, step off, have a view of a big picture of your life every now and then, that puts you in a better position, to put you in a driving seat, or rather in a position where you can control your life a lot more.
Yeah, I love those. Yeah, and I think one of the big things I always talk about with anybody I talk to, because obviously I tell them I'm a nutrition coach and a health advocate, I get asked a lot for advice, and the easiest and quickest and best piece of advice I always give is, when it comes to food, think about quality above above everything else. So if you fill your diet with mostly good quality foods from good source, then everything else will just take care of itself, rather than worrying about the little bits and pieces. And this is, we spoke a little bit about environment earlier, and our food environment, sadly, is really letting us down as a species. We've not. It's all based on money and profit, and it's not based on health. And we're surrounded by the worst kind of quality of nutrition, and sadly that's the cheapest and most readily available. So I think that's great advice: is always think the best quality you can afford, the best quality you can get your hands on. Always opt for that, or try and opt for that as much as possible, and you're going to be okay.
And sometimes, and I love what you say, opt for quality, but sometimes people think, oh, but that's expensive, or it's difficult, or it can actually be a lot easier than we think. So a couple of things just to add to what you said. For example, I make my own sauerkraut at home, just so that I have some probiotics, with my food. I make my own kimchi. It sounds complicated, but once you do it a couple of times, you learn fermentation it can't get easier. You literally put a few vegetables in brine and you leave it there for a while, and then you get so much out of it. So that the addition of that to your body is enormous. So it can be easy. It just needs to be, there needs to be intention in the mix. But it doesn't need to be expensive or complicated for you to eat healthy.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. You just took me right back to a very wise man I met in Fiji when I was in Fiji for 6 months years ago. Lived on a tiny island with the local family there, and they had a wise elder, and he said, there is nothing hard in this world. There's just new things. Yeah. And like you've said, once you've done a thing a few times, it's not hard anymore. And I think that's what sadly stops a lot of people. It's hard, so they're not going to do it. And that it's a shame, because if you just try these things a few times, you get organized, you have knowledge, and you can do these things,
Yeah, exactly. And it can be fun. After a while, it becomes fun because you reap the benefits. And I think it's more difficult in the long term to keep doing the same thing just because we're used to it, rather than being open-minded to something new and trying it out. It might be putting us outside of our comfort zone just for the first few times, but that's something that actually becomes fun, and you get addicted to that novelty as well. So again, I'd like to recommend that because I think it adds so much to life quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Fab. Well, I've got one eye on the time because we've gone whizzing through 36 minutes, and it's been a fab conversation. So thank you once again for your time. Before we kind of wrap up, how can people get in touch with you? Where's best for them to find you, your website and what you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. So my presence, if any platform, it will be on LinkedIn. So you can easily find my profile on LinkedIn if you just type in Puya Delavar. My website is also just puyadelavar.com. So easy to get to. I would say those two are the best way to get in touch with me if you have any questions. If you have any questions regarding anything relationship related, just send me a DM, and then we can just start having a very casual conversation about it and see how it goes.
Yeah, fab. And just pop that up on the screen there for anybody that's watching back. They can just quickly find that one for you. So yeah, highly recommend anyone reaching out to Puya, because well, if you've listened to this conversation, you know that he's highly knowledgeable, very passionate about helping others, and he's not just he's got all this experience that sort of brings to the table as well, that holistic view and that holistic way of looking after these delicate humans is fantastic. So I highly recommend that you get in touch with Puya. Just before we wrap up, obviously have a look at my profile. I'm working with local dads in Bristol at the moment, and we're building quite a community in the local gym there. So I run strength and fitness sessions just for dads, early mornings on Wednesdays and early on a Sunday morning. And I'm going to be adding a third session on a Sunday morning. So yeah, have a look at that website there if you're in Bristol. And yeah, it's an amazing group of guys, lots of different abilities and shapes and sizes. We tailor everything to suit everybody, and you can just come and have a really good workout and meet some cool guys. Have a bit of a time for yourself, and this is one of those things that's kind of grown into a community all by itself. And a lot of the feedback I get from the guys is that they look forward to these 2 hours a week where they can turn up, have a workout, be themselves, offload a little bit with the guys there, and they actually benefit from it mentally as well as physically.
100%. I can imagine how beneficial that is. That is so therapeutic, and I would recommend anyone doing it. Really, I'm over 50 myself, and I think this is an area that there's too little attention on these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like our physical life and our ability to move isn't over when we get to a certain age. If anything, I think you'll benefit more from doing it. You'll feel better in yourself from getting out and moving a bit. And I'll help if you're worried about hitting the gym and doing certain movements. That's what I'm here for, to help you out.
Great.
Cool. Well, thank you so much once again, Puya. It's been a brilliant conversation, and thanks everyone for watching, and I'll catch you soon.
Sounds great. Thank you, Paul.
Cheers.